My computer would explode if I tried 4K, I think. Okay. All right. We are officially recording. Okay. So I guess I'll just kick off the conversation and then we'll probably get started. All right. So we are here to chat about Dirty Ho. I watched 1979's Dirty Ho, I should say. I watched it yesterday morning on, is it Short Scope Volume 1 that one's on, right? Yes. So I watched it yesterday morning, and it's the first time I've revisited it in probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years. I still think this is a film that you watch over and over, and it offers up new things each time. I watched it this time. My Letterboxd review was originally 4 stars. I watched it this time. I gave it 5 stars. I couldn't not. It was so magical. And the wild thing is, one thing I noticed, it's such a departure for Lau Kar-leung. I think I don't know what got into him, but he was trying something new with this one.
I've got a theory on what did, but we'll get to that.
No, go ahead. Or do you want to hold back?
Nah, we'll get into it when we get deep into it. But I honestly think it's a response to what was going on the other side of the city, round at kind of Golden Harvest. I kind of feel like it's a response to what the Yun Clan were doing, because there's like some kind of caricatures of some of the characters in it, like the ancillary characters. And I also wondered if there's a little bit of a kind of wee elbow dig at Chang-Che with the cripples.
I was going to mention that as well, yeah, because there's a very obvious one-on swordsman reference, and I think I've noticed that a few times with his films, like a little dig, a little wink.
Yeah,
I quite appreciate that.
That's interesting. You brought up Chang-Che, because when I think of Chang-Che all the way through with Lau Kar-leung doing the choreography, I get like a sometimes spaghetti Western vibe, of course, Japanese influence, and especially with Jimmy Wang Yu and all that. So of course it has the Chinese culture in there, but I think this is when now, and I know Chang-Che knows a lot about Chinese culture, of course, but Lau Kar-leung has that lineage. And I think this is where he just cranked it up, and it went full Chinese culture. I don't see any Japanese influence. I don't see any.
Dude,
well, what I mean?
Cobb at the end, right?
No, right. I'm sorry, but what I mean is like in the Okay, you're right on that. I guess what I'm saying is that Western Japanese vibe. Like it just has more of the Chinese culture vibe to me, like in the cinematography, it strikes me as he's just going full board that way. But you are correct about the end, though.
It was I've kind of like I found it almost like a weird inversion of Lone Wolf and Cub. It's almost like Cub looking after Wolf rather than the other way around.
Right. No, you're totally
in
correct
a beautiful
on that.
way.
Yeah, the film makes that switch right halfway through. The switch is it's kind of Gordon Liu's character looking after or taking care of Wang Yu's character, and then it's the other way around. I love that kind of switch halfway through, and then essentially at the end they kind of join together and are, well, for a while when they're fighting on a similar level, and then of course we get the kind of comedic gag at the end where
it's one thing I really appreciate watching it again. I watched it again a couple of days ago. Is that Gordon Liu's character is very sincere. Like his motivations towards Mr. Ho is like he's not using him for like anything bad necessarily. He just recognizes his talent. It's like, hey, I'm gonna have a bit of fun with you, and I've got influence, and I just want to put you on the straight and narrow. But even though he knows people are going after him, killing him, I like when he steps above, steps aside a bit, like he's like, don't interfere in some of these businesses that I'm doing, but like I kind of want you to take you under my wing, but I don't want you to interfere with what's going on the side. I quite like that, which is what that switch is quite important towards. So late into it, almost halfway through the film, I would say.
That was my read too, right? And I think this is maybe, guys, if you'll indulge me for a wee second, I've got this review from Time Out that I was telling the boys before we started that I first found in a Time Out movie guide like 20 years ago. I think that the guide that I got came out in the year 2000, right? And so at that point, I'd only seen the English dub on VHS, probably from Made in Hong Kong. Found this review. It says on Time Out's website, written by TR. I'm assuming it's Tony Raines, which will become clear why I think that when I read this through. It's not long, but just will give us a kind of a good little synopsis and a couple of points that we can jump off on. So it says, marking the very highest point ever reached by the Kung Fu genre, Lau's masterpiece concerns an imperial prince, played by Gordon Liu, traveling incognito in South China, who enslaves the petty thief Ho, played by Wong Yu, by wounding him with a poison to which he alone possesses the antidote. When the prince is summoned back to Beijing for an urgent meeting about the imperial succession, the thief has no choice but to tag along. There are daily traps and ambushes on the road because a rival wants the prince out of the way. This is the Tony Raines element kicking in. The film lovingly exploits the ambiguity of the central relationship. Does the prince pick up the thief because he lusts after his body? Because he wants to improve him morally, or simply because he needs a bodyguard? Working with two of his own most brilliant pupils, Lau constructs several of the genre's most intricately choreographed set pieces. The disguised fight conducted while examining priceless antiques is in the Gene Kelly class.
Wow.
Which is a great fucking review, right?
Yeah,
it is.
I like Tony Raines. He's solid.
Yeah, he's great.
Same,
Yeah.
but he is himself gay, and so I think, as we saw with that other dude who did the Five Venoms commentary on Shawscope Volume 1, I think you see in movies a little of your own perspective and your own reflection, and I've always had a bit of an issue, a wee bit, with how Western culture has a tendency to try and impose a lot of Western values on their analysis of Chinese cinema. And there is a kind of like a deal of brotherhood amongst men that Chang Che celebrated so much in a way that I never read as homoerotic when I was growing up.
No,
right? And I've always kind of viewed it much more as just being basically like a kind of more of a bromance in the sense of like a good solid friendship, right? So I didn't necessarily ever get a sense that Gordon Liu was lusting after Wong Yu, as Andrew said. I think it was much more a case of him just trying to kind of steer him right.
Just kind of interested to see like, oh, who is this person? Like just kind of testing him, pushing him to his limits. And,
right. And when you watch Tango and Cash or any of these American movies, your brain doesn't go there at all. So I don't know why in the Asian films they kind of like, meaning maybe some people do, but I don't know why it has to be like a marriage. Because when I watched his Shawscope Volume 1 synopsis on this back-to-back with Heroes of the East, he's talking about it like a marriage, and he's saying, and then it switches to Gordon Liu being the feminine, but it's like, no, he got injured. I mean, I guess it's like submissive but I'm not thinking about dominant submissive in this. I'm thinking of like, it's like Sifu and Disciple kind of.
Yeah,
and that's what that doesn't reverse, but he becomes like the top disciple and his Sifu's injured, and like that happens a lot in these movies. The Sifu becomes kind of elderly, and
but there's a wonderful way of it. So reluctant at the beginning, like he literally is kind of like kowtowing down to him by like tapping his sore head in the beginning and say, okay, you're my disciple. And it's like such a kind of like, shit, I want my head to get better, so okay, I'm gonna call you Sifu. But then there's this excellent character development where by the end he's like so loyal, so on board with him, and it's really entertaining, and I think it gives them both a chance to shine. And Gordon Liu's so funny in this movie. He gets to flex his comedy chops so much.
He's brilliant. I
was trying to count how many times he strikes that mustache with his every time.
But every time he does it, it's fantastic. It's a wonderful
timing. Every time.
It's a wonderful bit of physical comedy, I think, and he does it at kind of like just the right moments throughout the film, and it's really, really wonderful. And I love Gordon Liu when he goes comedic. I think, granted, some can be. We know how Hong Kong comedy can be a bit kind of too much sometimes. Some of the Yuen Clan stuff is an acquired taste. I love it, but a lot of people might find it a little daunting, even the comedic side of his films. But I think Lau Kar-leung here, he takes a big swing with the comedy, and he hits, and he lands in this beautiful place that isn't too strange, but isn't too kind of by the book. He gives us this comedy that there's physical aspects, there's gags in there, and it just, I don't know, it just sits in this place that is perfect. It's a wonderful
story, really well. It makes sense for the characters and the situation they're in. Absolutely, like it doesn't feel out of place. Like it feels natural. Like, and that's sometimes that can go one way or the other with some of these kind of over top slapstick comedies. Absolutely,
exactly. If someone said, "Is Dirty Ho the perfect kung fu film?" I might say, well, it's a perfect kung fu film, but it's not maybe not the best kung fu film. Maybe I have something higher than that, but it possibly is the greatest kung fu comedy in my eyes. I don't think there's a film that takes the comedy aspect and the kung fu, combines it like this. I think it's such a perfect film. Now, would I show it to my wife? No, she'd be weirded out. she wouldn't get. Yeah, oh my god, why have I forgotten that? The Agonies. Is it Seven Agonies?
Yeah.
She would be very confused. I was confused at that scene.
You told me a few times that she has no time for shenanigans, right?
Shenanigans, yes. She shenanigans and hijinks she often uses. So yeah, she has no time for that whatsoever. So the Young clan is basically off the table completely.
Oh, I've showed this to my wife a couple of times, and we've got my mother-in-law is staying from China for a month. My mother-in-law speaks almost no English. She's from Canton province, and growing up didn't have that much access to seeing films. So I'm a little bit proud in a stupid way of the fact that I've seen infinitely more Chinese and Hong Kong movies than most of my Chinese family have. So I showed my mother-in-law Dirty Ho for the first time yesterday.
Oh, awesome!
She fucking loved it. She really, because she wasn't really. I didn't sit down and say, okay, we're going to watch a movie. I just put it on because I knew we were doing this today, and she was in the room with me. So she started. She was like, "Oh, okay, we can watch this," and stayed for the entire movie and was laughing at the beats and was invested. And she kept moving close, like she was in a seat off in the sort of other side of the room for about the first 15 minutes, and she just kept steadily moving closer and closer. And by the time it finished, she was right on the sofa beside me and my wife, just like she was there for it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it was cool, man. She dug it.
I had a question about the beginning. Like when I was young, now first off, that boat scene or the whole opening like stanza, that's not a brothel, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I took it to be, yes.
I thought it was. I mean, it seemed obvious. They were talking about a side room, and you get a room with these two girls. But it's kind of subtle. When I watched it, I was like, maybe it is not a brothel. But why would all these girls? It obviously is.
I think I've seen that a few times. Like I think the Prodigal Son has it as well. I think there's been a few movies that have had similar like boat sequences like that with brothel type things. But I don't know if it's common or not, or it's just just the location.
And when I was young, what threw me is because they do that opening stage sequence where he says master and it cuts to the boat scene.
Yeah.
Which is in itself, by the way, a perfect summary, like a mini version of the entire movie.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
So beautiful. Because sometimes we're used to that opening sequence kind of sometimes shot against red, and Lau Kar-leung did it a lot. Chang-Chi did it a lot. There's sometimes it works really well. And they did it at Golden Harvest too, like beginning of Snake and Eagle Shadows, a great one. And beginning of 36 Chambers, maybe one of my favorite
Executioner of Shaolin.
Totally.
Yeah.
But the one here so perfectly condenses the entire plot down into like however long with a banging tune as well. It's like really kind of like rip roaring little needle drop. But sorry, man, I cut you off. Go.
No, I was just saying what threw me from that is because you do get that little like microcosm of the whole movie. And then once it goes to those two on the boat, their vibe, I felt like they knew each other, but I guess they didn't. But when I used to watch it this time, it seems like they were like playing off each other because of a previous relationship, but they hadn't met at that point when it starts, right? So that helps a lot because when you see that Sifu and it cuts in the way they're interacting with the girls seem like they both got their own rooms, they traveled there together. That was the vibe I used to have, but now obviously they don't know each other.
No, and it's just literally kind of one-upmanship where it's just kind of like both of them trying to kind of get the girls to stay and like up in the ante with like Wong Yu or Dirty Ho offering like gold bars first, and like his staging with how he like jumps back and forth between them, like after the girls are about to disappear the first time, and like Wong Yu holds up the cups upside down on top of the gold bars between his knuckles, or first time they're sitting on top of the cups, and it's just these little touches that he does to kind of keep this bouncing back and forth almost like a little tennis match between the two. And then Gordon Liu can't be outdone with his like it's a big stack of like what I'm assuming is kind of like money orders, like or like a kind of money credit thing. Very cool.
People don't often give Lau Kar-leung the credit for being a fantastic director. Right, he makes good films, and he makes good. People think he makes good kung fu films, but his eye. And funny enough, I watched the Tony Raines special feature yesterday as well. He mentioned this was a brand new cinematographer for Lau Kar-leung. It wasn't Arthur Wong though for this one.
I think it is.
Oh, is it?
That was Heroes of the East, I thought.
Oh,
thought
was it?
for
Sorry, maybe
I'm not. No, I'm not sure. I know one of them he said, but by the end, Arthur Wong had to leave or something. So,
yes, Arthur Wong left, and they brought in someone else.
I watched it back to back, though. I could be wrong.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think there's two. There's Arthur Wong and there's Peter Nor Chi Wan. Assuming that the Hong Kong movie database is accurate, but I'd always knew it was Arthur Wong. I think.
Okay, yeah, he mentioned, and I could be wrong. It could be Heroes of the East, but apparently, I think it was this one though. Arthur Wong left a little bit into the film, and he brought in someone else, and it was just a different cinematographer than usual. And Tony Raines was saying that he captures kind of the film a little differently from what Arthur Wong would usually. But I, by all means, I could be wrong. I have to clarify.
No, I wonder. In some ways, it makes sense because once we get to the last act and we're in the baby cart sequence, that has a very different vibe, right?
Yeah. And when it gets to, I mean, that has to be when you're talking the best of different elements. When it comes to cinematography, when he gets down to battle Lole and the general and the two henchmen or whatever you want to call them, that camera work. I get goosebumps talking about it right now. That camera work is like the best ever. I mean, it is so. And that does seem like a shift because the movie has a little more of a tight. They're on the boats and they're in the like cramped Shaw Brothers sets, and of course this is more spread out. But man, that camera work in the positions the three of them have, it's like seriously like the best ever. You know,
the locations are absolutely fantastic, and like traditional Shaw Brothers sets. Like with the wine sequence, obviously later on, and then the Lone Wolf and Cub, like windy mountains. I love the little joke saying, "Why did it get so windy out of nowhere?" That's funny. And then the finale, it's such like it just escalates and gets bigger, and it changes. You know, absolutely, and the cinematography complements that as well. So it definitely goes bigger and bigger as the film gets along, which is quite impressive.
And managed to just keep basically 5 bodies in motion in that last section. I mean, the choreography between how it bounces back and forth, and basically from he's clearly just having fun up until a point where he's like, all right, shit, we should probably move this along, and then kind of go on and he's like, handle them both, right? And he takes both of the 2 other guys out like within like the next minute.
I said to my friend when I was watching again with him, was like, count how many cuts there are in that finale, and as you're going 1. 2. It's like masterful. It's like wow. It's like it's long takes and it's like complicated, kind of like it's what form of weaponry work. There's like multiple people coming there. It's like the amount of craftsmanship on that, and it's like and the camera work's constantly changing alongside their movement. It's like how that by itself could be just an excellent finale to anything, but the fact you've got all this extra stuff on top of it as well, that's just incredible, really incredible.
With some great visual gags in there. The reveal when he's basically split the two, when Gordon split the two of them apart, and he just literally switches down the handle on his sort of cane staff combo thing, right? And like Wong, you just switches it down, steps out of frame, and then you kind of pull rack focus onto the blade of the edge of Lole's weapon. You kind of see that he's been hit with a blade, right? And then his body falls.
Yeah,
it's fucking genius.
I thought in that moment, I think Chang Che would have done it to Wong Yu. Chang Che would have had Wong Yu die, in my opinion. Because you know what I mean? Because it's like
that's commentary on his work anyway, and I think like always started, don't they? Like Legendary Weapons, commentary on that.
He rarely killed people. He'll teach you a lesson. He's kind of like Kung Fu Batman, Lau Garong. He'll fuck you up, but he won't kill you, right? He very rarely, because there's even a bit of ambiguity. Like if we jump way back to kind of one of my favorite kind of fights, which is kind of when he's going up against Wang Lung Wei and Sao Ho when they're in this kind of the drinking scene. At the end, depending on the English subversion, basically at that point kind of leaks the plot. Like they say, like, the plan was to kill you. And he's like, oh, okay. But none of that's in the subversion. In the subversion, it's still kept ambiguous. Where they're like, he's still asking about, okay, where's the wine coming from? But you know that he's meaning, who the fuck's told you to do this stuff, right? And after he's taken them both out, he says on his way out, like, look after them, they're drunk, to somebody. And there's a sense that, did he kill them? Are they flat out dead? Or has he just knocked them out? Because there's that beautiful, like, poof, kind of point straight to Wang Ling's neck.
Yes,
I thought he kills him in that moment.
I did too, but
I thought he died.
It could be. It's hard to say.
Yeah, I think, but less ambiguous with this once we get the incredible Wilson Tong coming on with some spectacular footwork with his like shoes with the blades, right?
The crazy thing about that is, I actually mentioned this the other day, right? I watched the final fight scene in The Lady is the Boss, or The Lady is a Boss, and I noticed Wang Longwei fights Lau Garlung in that fight scene, and there's in the whole fight, there's genuinely about 2 kicks. And that's because he's a Hung Gar practitioner, and Hung Gar doesn't actually throw many kicks. The fact that Garlung can like give Wilson Tong, who's just he's known as the Foot Doctor, so many kicks, and it's just incredible. Like it just goes to show his genius that he can utilize his Hung Gar skills to choreograph a wonderful fight scene with just hands. But when Wilson Tong comes in, he's like, "Well, you've got legs on you. I'm gonna, give you all the kicks in the world." It's incredible stuff.
Just as an aside, and this is a quick one because I'm assuming, Sean, you're probably going to post this pretty soon, but fuck it. Lady is the Boss is coming from 88 Films as part of their this current kind of cycle of shows.
That's great news. That's
awesome because it's a phenomenal movie.
Watch it, but that's brilliant.
I wanted to say on the fighting, when you're talking about like the finale, 1977 to 79, that is such a jump in the quality. Like if you watch Executioners of Shaolin, which is one of my favorite kung fu movies ever, I prefer it over Clan of the White Lotus, which could be a whole other,
blasphemy.
Yeah. I could go off on an hour on that. Yeah, I tend to not like comedic elements in the movies as much, and I feel Executioner gives me that Chang Che, just like almost, I wouldn't say horror element, but just it has like a dead serious, like Pai Mei, just this, and when it gets to the needles at the end of Clan of White Lotus, I love it, but it's just, I tend to like Executioners,
I think the training sequences are definitely better as well, like the kind of the steel ball inside
so
that
good.
is,
I love it.
Genius.
But what I was saying is, if you watch that though, the fighting is a little more primitive in it. It's great. And then I don't know if it was 78 being Jackie Chan leading the way with Drunken Master, and everyone's like, like what did they say? Boats, tides raise the boats, or whatever. The phrase.
Tide raises all ships. Yeah.
Yes. So when you got to 79 here, and speaking of, I think 1978 is probably the best year of all kung fu cinema. I mean, I can't think of another year that can top that. When you talk about Five Deadly Venoms, oh my gosh, Heroes of the East, 36 Chamber, you can go on and on. I mean, Shaolin Mantis, that year is just insane.
Like Heroes of the East, watching that, and then like Shaolin Mantis, like 2 very different tonal films, and the fact you can do that within roughly the same time period, massive. Completely separate.
Yeah,
it has the same director. It's unbelievable. It's like,
oh, I know,
such a
and then
different style.
When it gets to this fight scene here, I feel the speed, everything is just so perfect on it. It doesn't have that slightly, well, maybe in 77 it didn't seem slower, but to us after watching Jackie and all the later films and everything, but it just has perfect speed. The execution is perfect. And, in Lau Kar-Leung later, I tend to prefer his 70s, output. Like when it gets to Cat versus Rat, and dare I say 8 Diagram Pole Fighter, I do believe is a little overrated. I do like it. Yeah, I mean,
I think so.
There's so much baggage to it, though. It's such a hard one to like the what could have been versus what we got, and there's this.
Yes,
I love it, right? And it's got
me too.
I think it's got maybe my single favorite Lau Kar-Leung choreographed sequence in it, which is Gordon Liu going up against Philip Cole before leaving the temple, right? Just as a little self-contained little 8.5 minute slice of absolute perfection. But there is, I mean, again, we need another episode to dive into 8 Diagram Pole Fighter, but I've long said, and I think this is a safe circle, this is a safe space for me to make this for me, Lau Kar-Leung is basically like Hong Kong's Kurosawa. Like I put him up at that sort of level. He's one of my favorite directors, not my favorite Hong Kong directors, not my favorite martial arts movies directors, just flat out one of my favorite directors.
Wow.
Even putting aside the lineage of his kung fu skills, I just think he's never gets the props, and that's what we'll hopefully address today, as how he composes a frame, and particularly how he's pre-thinking his edits, and how he's kind of basically pre-working out his transitions. And Chang Che never really, I think, by the time we got to that point in the 70s when he was working with the Venom mob, I kind of feel that a lot of the reason why the Venom mob movies were so good was because the Venoms were so hungry. I think Chang-Chi was like, you do your thing and I'll make sure that we capture it well. But whereas Lau Gao-lung had this hunger for keeping all of his movies fresh and all really visually different. There's even little things, because sometimes he'll do it through editing transitions, but sometimes he does it through prop gags. Like there's this wonderful sense of the passage of time through the size of the patches on Ho's head. When he takes one off and sticks it on the wall, and you realize that you've gone from like these massive like chunky squares down to the one that's a little bit smaller, and you know that it's been like weeks or however long. Like we've it's a wonderful jump cut in time. He does those sort of things all the time, or he'll kind of like uses flames quite a lot, where he'll kind of zoom in really quite closely on the flame and then use that to transition to a different shot. But the man was a genius.
What I noticed is with Chang-Chi, like his early stuff, like Heroic Ones, which was one of my favorite. There's tons of people in the background. They go outside a lot. There's this epic, all these things going on. Like I compare it to a video game, like early or mid 90s, or when they started to get the open world, they couldn't have a ton of people in the background. It was kind of barren. Chang-Chi had that at the beginning, but by the time it got the Venoms, as you said, he had Chang-Ching doing the assistant director side of things, and he was just kind of stepping back. I think he slacked a little bit on, like, when you go to a town, there's just a few people walking around, and Lau Kar-lung came in. Oh my gosh, when you're watching on the boat, you can see like a whole thing going off in the background. Everything is alive, and it makes it feel a little more real. And it might be strange to say, when I watched Two Champions of Shaolin, even when I was younger, I kind of liked the barren aspect. I feel like you're like at Shaw Brothers Studio, and it's like, wow, no one's here almost. It's kind of, but I feel when you're in those indoor sets, it's important, especially if a town scene, just have a lot of activity, people talking in the background. When you lose a little bit of that, it's less immersive, in my opinion. And Lau Kar-lung really upped that a lot, had that going on.
Absolutely. And more lens flares than a J.J. Abrams film in this one.
More what? What'd you say?
More lens flares than a J.J. Abrams film.
Yeah.
You know there was someone just off camera, basically, with some sort of little torch bouncing off the edge of blades, right? Just so they got it just right. And for anybody who maybe kind of like doesn't know us well enough to know the way that we're speaking about this is nothing that we're saying is a slight against Chang-Chi. Everybody adores Chang-Chi's movies, but they're kind of different animals, and that's a wonderful thing. In the same way that John Woo's a very different director, in the same way that Godfrey Ho is a very different director, and all these dudes started their careers working under Chang-Chi. So Chang-Chi's work ethic and his idea of how to keep things moving, I think, has definitely influenced them all. But they've all taken it and given it their own little bit of seasoning and spice, and taken it into the places that has interested them the most. And with kind of varying degrees of success, because I love Godfrey Ho's movies, but a lot of the time he was working with a lot less resources. And John Woo's a different kettle of fish, having just recently seen that killer reimagining. But again, that's a different story for a different episode. But Lau Kar-lung, I think, certainly is the one who you can feel a sense of how much he was having his wings clipped towards the end of their working relationship, where there was all this stuff that he was like, it would be really cool if we tried this, and Chang-Chi's just like, nah, come on, we've got it, let's move on to the next thing, and him being like, but we could have, why I oughta. And then by the time that he gets unleashed to do his own thing, it's just a joy. And they're also spectacularly different in tone, and in a way that's kind of really, it all feels like him, but it's all him flexing different parts of kind of his toolkit, right? And sometimes it's much more overtly pure comedy. Like I'd say Cat v Rats might be the most extreme example of that. But sometimes there's this wonderful balance, and I think this it's really cool on that Showscope set that they put Dirty Ho and Heroes of the East on the same disc, because the two of them they're like two sides of the same coin, where they both are playing around with comedy, but also with a pretty serious undertone in places that when it needs to be, when you need to know that there's stakes, you know that there's stakes. And
absolutely,
yeah, it's wonderful. And I'm rambling.
No, it's all good.
No, not at all. So I was wondering. So I had this question. I don't know if any of you even know the answer, but I was kind of kicking it around yesterday. So this film has a lot of what I call covert fight scenes, right? Where they're fighting, but they're not fighting.
I think it's stealth kung fu. I think the terminology has been going around.
Stealth kung fu. There you go.
Like, I know that you know, but I'm going to play it cool until one of us gives it up. Essentially,
exactly.
Which the wine scene, which is the pinnacle of that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm wondering, what was the first film that had that in it?
I have not seen something like that before. I don't think. I can't think of one.
There is.
So well, it's funny. Heroes of the East pops to mind because which scene is it when he's teaching her how to where he has his robe or whatever and how you can kick below it, but that's pretty minimal. That's pretty minimal.
You have the Huang Zhangli, Yunshu Qian from Dance of the Drunken Mantis, where they're drinking the wine and they're kind of exchanging the wine cups. That's kind of like that. And then you have a similar one, but I think it's in 1980 with Hitman in the Hand of Buddha with Tino Wong and Huang Zhangli over the table. Again, they're kind of, for a moment, they're kind of pretending. But then that goes into a full fight scene. But I'm obsessed
that
with
too.
it.
Yeah, I wondered too.
I love the concept. It's wonderful.
Not to go back to video games, I love the game Oblivion. And if you steal something in the game Oblivion, the guards are there like in 1 second. It's hysterical. It's like a meme. I wonder if that's why. I mean, that's probably why they did all this covert things. Because in this movie, anytime they say guard, they're there in like 5 seconds, like with their spears out. So is that the idea why it all had to be covert? Because the guards were just so overbearing? Is that?
I don't think so. I think that there was just. I think part of it comes from, I think there was a story about, like in Chinese history, of one of the princes of that era having been said to kind of wanted to kind of escape the Forbidden City, where most of the royal family had to stay like all the time, and explored Canton and explored the south. So I always took it as being the fact that he himself is like, shit, no one can know who I am, right? Unless it's absolutely necessary.
Yeah, I agree on that.
And so I think that's the idea of it all being why it's so hidden. And when the kind of we ultimately know it's Brother Four, but when Brother Four is instructing Lo Lei, that's my buzzer. 2 seconds, boys. Hold that thought.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I think there's it could just be. I mean, I think Dragon's definitely right, but I love the idea of Lau Kar Lung's mind going, well, it's just visually poetic, right? There's a part of it that's just visually seeing two people not know that they're fighting.
Yes.
It's just it's so exciting, and so it just feels so fresh and interesting.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah. And what comes to mind on that is this book here. You can see it. You guys know this one, of course.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes. This was my Bible growing up, and probably a lot of your guys. And when I was young, he would talk about that wine scene with Wang Langwei. And I have to be honest, when I'm like 6 or 7, I couldn't really appreciate the sophistication of it all. Right. It seemed like a little too grown up. I wanted to see a little more of the Chang Cheh side of things. But as you get older, just the execution of the scene, and it's like they're naming the wines and the styles are changing. It is highbrow, but it's like it takes the Kung Fu movie up to like Academy Award, in my opinion, level of things. I mean, that I could see that getting an Academy Award for that scene. Seriously.
Still doesn't know. Like, he's just kind of like still watching and thinking, what's going on? This is weird. And he's like, can I step outside? And it's like, it's just like, what are they talking about? It's kind of thing. I can't, that's the comedy of it a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Wang Yu's playing the fool in it. And for whatever reason, I guess it isn't the guards as much. Gordon Liu's always trying to hide it from Wang Yu, at least for the first half, until he sees him fight in the antique fight.
Yeah, yes, with Wilson Tong. When he sees the blades on the shoes, that's when he's like, "Oh, right, okay."
Yeah.
It's the concepts of even the moment with Kara Y fighting for Gordon Liu when he's he's utilizing her body to fight. There's something about that that's just also, if you watch that scene and you watch the complexity of how Gordon Liu is moving Kara Y, it takes a genius mind to work that out. I don't know. There's something I guess what I got from watching it this time around is kind of the visual poetics of it all, like how stunning the fight choreography is, and how my mind simply does not work that way. Like I cannot think how the body would move that. I don't know. It's something else. He just killed it in this film. It's magical.
And there's something perfect about, I keep coming back to the speed and the amount of, I guess, movements per edit. It's just so perfect to me. And I have to be honest, when I get to, I've always had a little bit of trouble with Legendary Weapons of China. I'm not sure why. I do like it, but I think what it is like, I don't know, maybe because Star Wars was out by now, but Star Wars, Jackie Chan, everything was just ramping up in cinema across the world. It's like you could see Lau Kar-Leung. I mean, God, there's explosions going off and darts and there's so much going on in Legendary Weapons, which I love. But I just sometimes wish I like him when he's a little more subtle, maybe a little more pulled back from that. That's just my take on it.
No, I kind of agree.
But that would probably be in a different video because there's some interesting stuff on that I quite liked. But,
say it now. I'm interested.
Oh yeah, just with that obviously is like the whole first half of that. Well, I mean, not to take away from this film, like that one is the first half is he's just taking the piss out of like Wuxia type films. Like he's just literally mocking, showing deliberately the framework and the obvious people going behind the cameras, and there's a lot of digs of Shaw Brothers on that film, and
Chang Che specifically,
Chang Che especially, and doing like a samurai remake of Spiritual Boxer. That's like there's so much like he's having a lot of fun on that, and you can tell like he's responding to what the new trend is. I think that's like 83, I think at the time. I can't remember exactly.
82.
82. I was close. But yeah, they were responding to a lot of those types of big wire work movies. A lot of actors that couldn't do the talent, and he's like showing, like, here's my beer. Let me show you what I can do. And that final hour of that film is like literally unbelievable, and that's pure long why from a team.
I think he was also flexing with Fu Sheng,
but it seems to be disregarded a little bit. I don't know why. That's weird.
Well, you're talking about Legendary Weapons?
Legendary Weapons, yeah, just with a talking point. Like,
Well, I just want to say real quick, but that's what the thing is. This book here, Rick Myers declared it. This is in 1986, the best kung fu movie of all time in the book. So, and this when I was 7 years old, this was my gospel. So I was like, okay. When I went to watch it, I guess it was overhyped in my head because this is when you sit down to think, okay, this is declared the best one ever. You watch it through a different lens. So maybe if I had watched it just flatline versus going, okay, I'm about to watch the best one ever, that kind of altered my take on it. But I think back in the day, though, Andrew, like I think now definitely it's not brought up as much, but Rick Myers kind of leading the way on the media side of things. He declared it the best one ever, like the essential kung fu movie of all time. Like if you get that book and it counts down, it's number one. And when he says that, he said, yeah, the chapter in the book.
A lot of pressure on that film to deliver, and again, based on your taste and what you see. So yeah, I can understand that. Hype and expectation is a killer of most films half the time. It's depending on what you're going for.
True.
Phantom Menace.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
so I can also, it was him getting a chance to flex with a healthy Fu Sheng as well. So I think the Fu Sheng cameo feels like it's kind of given more importance and relevance in the film than it seems like it should. Like he's not really that big a character in the movie. Like it kind of feels like it should be much more of Sao Ho and Carl Wei's kind of joint to run with. But it's a weird. It's much more ensemble than any of his other movies, and that's why I've always had a bit of an issue with exactly where to place it in my rankings, because it's quite all over the place. There's like sections in it I absolutely adore, but it's a little bit more vignette or sectional than some of his other stuff. It maybe doesn't kind of flow as continuously well as just like a straight out movie experience.
Episodic.
I feel like Lau Kar-Leung kind of does that though, with like just bringing it back to Dirty Ho for a second. He takes these big actors and he gives them small roles. Lo Lei's in this, but he barely has anything to do other than fight. Carol Wai's in this, barely has anything to do. But
was it her first performance? Like I swear this was like her first introduction to his movies.
Yeah,
it probably is.
She's done some stuff with roles. She's done some stuff with Chang Che. She's in like Brave Archer 2. I'm sure it's 2 that she shows up in when they're start passing through town. And I think she had another cameo in in maybe another Chang-Chi movie, but it's pretty damn early on. Like,
when I saw her birthday.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying when I saw her birthday like last year or something, I was surprised how young Carol. I thought she'd be like 70. She was only like 62 or something when I saw it.
Yeah.
So
she's still going strong. She's still acting quite a lot, and she's doing quite a lot of weird reality TV shows. She's pretty intense. She was doing this show where they're trying to find like the next new wave of Chinese actor that we watched a little bit of, and they're all terrified of her, man. They're like, she's really tough, like, because she had a very, very hard kind of education coming up into movie making. So I think most of that generation view the next new generation of kids has just been like, they're too lazy to kind of actually do stuff. So she's pretty hardcore with them. It's funny.
When I read about her, go ahead, Andrew.
Was she like a ballerina dancer, and then she had to transition into martial arts, like by taking under her wing? I think that's from the extras and from the research I've looked into her. Like, she didn't know any of that stuff. She had to kind of learn it from scratch. And I think there was something on the extras, or maybe on scope of Volume 2, My Young Aunt, like basically along the way trained at the exact same level as Gordon Liu. Is like, there's no difference. You're going to say that you can have the exact same training tactics. Everything you're going at the same pace. You keep up, step up. And I love that. And she's, you can see her more and more as she goes into these films. I feel like Lady Boss, like amazing in that. Like probably my favorite performances. And I watched that recently. It's like, wow, that's like incredible.
I heard after Shaw Brothers, I mean, I don't know where I read this, but I think she got like depressed and she was like suicidal for a while.
Yeah.
Did you hear that? Yeah. I can't remember why, but I was kind of shocked. I mean, I don't know. You seem, Dragon, you seem to know like her trajectory, but after Shaw Brothers, was there like a long lull in her career or something? Or
not massive. I think she did quite a little bit of stuff for TVB, and then was still sort of continuing to kind of make like small kind of occasional cameos and stuff, and then she kind of came back in a big way in Donnie Yen's Dragon Wuxia. She's got a great part in, and then the director's name escapes me at the moment, but she's in Rigor Mortis, the kind of like sort of weird homage movie to Mr. Vampire, and she's as a just straight out actress, heartbreakingly good in that movie. She's like really gets to sort of flex, and she had a sort of I don't know if Shaun and Jason, I don't know if you know Prime Suspect, the Helen Mirren.
I do.
Sort of detective. She kind of had a version of that in Hong Kong for quite a long time.
Was that Mrs. K, or was that a TV
show?
No,
that's something. Mrs. K was like a sort of standalone movie. I can't remember the name of the show, but it was kind of like very played straight, not like an Inspector Wears Skirts sort of vibe. There's very little action in it, but she's just like kind of like senior kind of investigative detective.
She doesn't get recognized as much. I think that was in one of the extras also on the short scopes. Like, she's not compared to like Michelle Yeoh or any of the big names like Maggie Chung. Everyone knows all those names, but she's not recognized the same. Same with Long Kali Wai. It's a weird kind of family unit that is kind of actors, recurring actors, directors, people come in he works with. They're not always on everyone's lips. No one recognizes them straight away. They have to go like, who? It's just very strange to me. And the body of work is incredible. It's just it really is bizarre.
Her seems fantastic in this, and I think she plays it like, for somebody who's just starting out, she really manages to kind of sell you on the fact, which is no mean feat, of being unwittingly involved in this subterfuge of basically trying to like keep kind of like a whole kind of guessing in such a good way, and Gordon Liu's backing it up by basically kind of reinforcing what she's doing, like, oh, it's okay, no, don't hit him like that, no, you don't want to kill him, like, don't hit him too hard, and like cutting off her sentences to like stop her from kind of giving the game away. And it's so slick, and you can see there's maybe, because I've at this point seen the movie probably 30 or 40 times, I think, over the years, but there's a couple of points where you can see she's a little bit ahead of Gordon Liu, so she's getting the kick there before she's sort of pushed through.
But, there's two punches in particular that he kind of is not quite at is her arms yet.
Because she's quick, right? She's quick and she's fast, but it still works really well. One thing that I guess I kind of probably always knew it, but every single time I watch, I catch another one, which is how many times Sao Ho is doubling for everybody.
Everyone in this film. Yeah, he pops
every
up
time
all the time.
There's any flip. Yeah, totally. I think he does Lo Lei at the end. He does Gordon Liu a couple of times. He does Wong Yu a couple of times. Basically, anytime anyone does some form of insane somersault, that is absolutely Sao Ho.
Yeah, I was reading in a book. Go ahead, Shaun.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying, I was reading a book that pointed that out, that said, I can't remember why, but Lo Lei had like a put on hunchback in this a bit. And whenever the stunt double or no, other way, I can't remember what it was. I actually have the book here. You guys probably have this one too.
Yes, we got that.
Yeah. If you, I think it's
thanks to you, brother.
What'd you say?
I do thanks to you, brother. You sent me.
Oh yeah, no, this is a different one. This is a different one actually. This is hold on. Can you see it? Yours is the you thought it was the paperback. Yours is the encyclopedia of martial arts movies. Yeah, that's like my favorite. This is Ultimate Guide to Martial Arts Movies in the 1970s. And in this one, it just talks about how whenever the hunchback goes away, it's Lo Lei. When it comes in, it's the other guy. And I guess it's an ode to like another character that fights with a hunchback or something like that. It's kind of interesting. Yeah.
Was this before or after Mad Monkey Kung Fu then? Had Xiao Ho had his shining moment?
Same year. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Interesting,
because I wondered, it's a very small role he has in this film, so I wondered whether he'd done Mad Monkey first and kind of this was just he brought on for a little cameo, or whether this was him in a similar situation to Karawai, where they were kind of building his career and then he got Mad Monkey Kung Fu.
And Mad Monkey Kung Fu was after this, I think.
It would make sense.
Cao Hong's a lot bigger role in that one, I think, as well. She's really has a big fight scene. She's like the sister character. And I think that was a bigger role than compared to what this one was.
They were released 1 month apart, boys.
Of course.
Really?
It came out on the 8th of April, 79. Mad Monkey came out on the 10th of May.
There you go.
Oh,
crazy.
Man. It was such a conveyor belt.
Yeah. It's
absolutely out these films very quickly in quick succession. And good quality as well. Like, it's just getting crazy. Quality and difference, and not the same type of film twice. It's just getting something a little different, like Execution from Shaolin, going with something like this, like Heroes of the East. It's like, wow, there's like I'm getting variety here of movies from him. So it's incredible.
I do have a question though. When did Gordon Liu poison the sword? When did he have time to poison the sword? He's like, this is going to happen, so I'm going to poison the sword nice and early. And then when he comes in, it's already going to be pre-poisoned.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah. I think I kind of always just assumed that it was always his sort of poison sword. But I wasn't even conscious of him having it at any point or it's not seen close to him. It almost felt like it was randomly on the wall and he just happened to grab it out and swing it out.
I mean, he doesn't use it again in the film, does he, if I remember correctly?
Maybe he poisoned them all. Maybe that was his thing. Just to
he poisons his decorations around his room and poison on this.
It would not surprise me. They do bust out another sword later on, like Wong Yu towards the end. Ho does bust out like a more traditional Chinese broadsword when he's gone up against the three guys. For that kind of last fight. But just literally a blink and you miss it. It's only there for a couple of little points. Mostly he's still always kind of favored going hand to hand or hand against weapon or umbrella against arrow, whatever it may be.
Great stuff. I think people watching this video would kind of criticize us if we didn't talk about the Seven Agonies for a few minutes and their kind of appearance in the film and their just bizarreness. I think some people might think because it is an odd addition to the film, and the concept behind the fight, which is basically Wong Yu's character essentially turning gay because of this fight scene, which is bizarre, very strange. But there's basically a magic tea involved that makes you gay, and these guys fight you, and it's so strange, but it gives Lau Kar-leung a chance to flex and kind of create these weird, strange fights between these oddball characters.
It's kind of a samurai dream for a little bit. And it's like talk about how this is going to play out, and it's like you get the reality of it. But I guess it helps with Mr. Ho's character with his footwork coming into play. So I do agree. It's the one that's like everything is quite consistent, and it's like it works well. It's a little bit time of departure, but only by a little bit, and then it kind of goes back to like. Okay.
For me, that's where kind of it loses me at that part for some reason. I think if I watch it more and more, I do appreciate what it brings to the film. And in my mind, I don't remember it when I was young because I watched all those World Northel versions on television, edited from Larry Bensky. says it at the front of all of them. And I wonder if that scene was chopped out or chopped down, because that one I don't remember it till like I saw it on Celestial and stuff. I don't, you know. But yeah, I think because like how our buddy Flip says he doesn't like the kung fu comedies as much. I do enjoy them to an extent, but that's where it's starting to push a little too far for me. It's like I like the subtlety when it's there. It's so overbearing with like them crossing their eyes and like, oh, it's like, you know, it's.
Yeah,
I think it just goes a little bit too far in that. But it has some funny things, especially in the English dub. That guy's voice, pretty J or whatever his name is, Lady J. I can't remember what his name is.
This was the bit that felt the most like he was responding to kind of some of the stuff that the Yun Clan and maybe to a certain extent Sammo Hung were doing too, because there's a sort of Gurnish aspect to it. But I did some checking, knowing I knew this, that we were going to dive into this. So the kind of I mean, in the dubbed version they call them the bitters because of the bitter tea and the guy who's always biting. I assumed they just kind of call them, but I think the Seven Agonies is a much better name for them in the kind of the original subs. But the kind of the head of them, who is fully presented as kind of being a woman, even though you know it's not in the movie. That's an actor called Lee Ging Fan, and every single part that Lee Ging Fan played, if you basically kind of check out his discography, is like feminine prisoner number 14, transvestite, eunuch, castrator. Wow. He's basically, I think that was kind of his sort of vibe, and Dirty Ho comes pretty late in his career. So I kind of wondered if he was already somebody that people were quite like, oh, it's that almost like a Shaw Brothers Dean Sheck, right? In a
was it
little
bit or something? Was it like an actor? Oh, that actor, we have to get that actor in because he's just known for doing that. And
I think so.
Maybe that was it. I guess
it worked as a plot ploy because they were so influenced from the women at the beginning that they used that as that was the ploy to get him to get through the walls, and it worked to an extent. Yeah,
and it's also a nice little kind of repeat. They kind of don't do it in threes, but there's a nice little almost callback to the way that Gordon Liu kind of won out over Ho in the beginning when he was like offering up the kind of like the money to kind of try and entice him with greed. Though this time round, it's a kind of chance for him to show off his invisible non-shoulder moving kicks. So he's kind of holding out the stack of money and then kind of kicking them all around. So I think it kind of wrapped things up pretty quick. It is odd, right? And between that and the crippled fight, the 4 fake cripples early on, I much prefer the 4 fake crippled fight because I think there's a lot more going on choreography wise that's much more interesting than that one. But I find it's weird, each successive watch, that whole Seven Agonies thing bothers me less.
Me too.
Yeah.
I agree. I used to literally hate it. Like it was just not a part for me. And this time I actually really enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. I still find it strange, but I there's something.
It's funny. It is funny, even though it is weird.
Yeah. And there's that incredible, is it split diopter shot where it's got the sad guy's face and then it goes to Wong Yu and he's got exactly the same face. There's some great stuff in there. The choreography is strange, but it's crisp. It's kind of just like the rest of the film. It's just, I don't know. Maybe it was an answer to the Yun Clan. I do like that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Dragon. Like me, when I watched this time, I had in my mind, I know you love this movie, but I kind of went through it watching it vicariously, like through your eyes in a way. I was like, because if someone's, to influence you, this is my favorite kung fu movie, so you watch it like, okay, not like defiantly. I like wanted to really see, and because usually for me, Heroes of the East is usually my favorite Lau Kar-leung movie. It's changed a bit, like everyone. One time. Shaun said you posted every kung fu fan has their top 5. They have 50 movies in their top 5. You posted. For me, it rotates a bit. Crippled Avengers right now. 36 Chamber of Shaolin, I think, in my opinion, is the best kung fu movie of all time. Because I've gone through periods where it's talked about so much and like it's like an overplayed song almost a bit. But when you can step away from that, I just think. Yeah, I think it's the best. I think 36 Chamber is edging out Heroes of the East, but watching Dirty Ho, it's entering the conversation for me. It's getting up into that. It's like a trifecta of that 78, 79 era. I will say Dirty Ho, the third act is unbelievable. and 36 Chamber, of course, the middle period, the training is what it's known for. I feel the final fight's a bit anticlimactic in 36 Chamber.
Yeah.
You know, it's short and there's the headbutt, and it's kind of like they were wrapping it up quickly or something.
Yeah.
If that had a stronger ending, it would be undeniable. I wouldn't have to like undulate with it, you know. But yeah, right now, Heroes of the East, Crippled Avengers is edging up on 36 Chamber is my favorite. And Dirty Ho, I can see the sophistication of it. It's coming up. You've influenced me. You know?
And I don't necessarily think it's the best. It's just my favorite. And I think
okay.
Because I think there's definitely other times when Lau Kar-leung's choreography was kind of more dynamic and more engaging and faster and slicker in a way, depending on sometimes better shot, depending on what the circumstances with. I think some of the Japanese performers in Heroes of the East are arguably just straight up martial arts masters more than they are actors. And some of those kind of fights, I think from a pure technical martial arts point of view, are probably better than anything we see in Dirty Ho. There's points in all the fights here that you could say that it at times almost feels slow compared to some of his other stuff. But it's just a movie that I find so thoroughly entertaining, and I think that's why it's my favorite.
I think it's the investment. Like, so one thing I always say in my reviews is like it's story and character is always number one. And if you can get them right, everything else hopefully can be an extra add-on to. Hey, great comedy, brilliant action. I love that. Great fight scenes, amazing. So this film, it's almost like a full package. It gives you the serious, it gives you the comedy, it gives you an investment or journey you want to go into, and it's definitely a good crowd pleaser, I would say. You know, the others maybe could be a bit more debatable, I guess. You know, no one's going to like all of his films, but I think I don't think I've failed to see one person that's not liked this film, which is, you know, it's great. You know,
where did it rank for you, Andrew? Where did it rank doing your whole series?
It's definitely the top 5 for sure. Definitely, yeah. I was no expectation. We're into this, and I knew I was aware of the wine scene, but that's about it. But everything else before that, after that, it was just pure gold and just getting, you know, sport for choice, I'd say, in this film.
Yeah,
and I love Gordon Liu, and it's just great to see him just really be ecstatic in this film, play a great character.
I think it's one of his best chances to actually kind of show what his acting chops kind of were. Because
Heroes of the East, he's really good in that as well. But like this one, he's flexing different muscles a little bit. Like, you know, especially when you go to his start off where leading up to this, is like this is definitely his chance to like do more comedy and play a very different type of character. It's amazing, like he's the same actor in Heroes of the East and in this. It's like, wow, that's quite transformation a little bit, you know.
Yeah, the only other thing that I've seen him kind of have this sort of energy about him is with his tiny little cameo in My Young Auntie, where he's like doesn't really do any action. He's just, and to a certain extent, Lady and the Boss too, where he gets to wear some pretty crazy 80s fashion. But I think his comedy timing, and as we've mentioned the moustache already, but I think there's just so many little beats where he's given moments to shine as an actor more than as a martial arts performer. Like if we jump back to that Cripples fight, where he's literally just almost like a wrestling commentator sitting off to the side drinking wine, and like after a certain point, because initially Wong Yu's, once he dispatches one, he's like, all right, next, and then at a certain point it switches, and Gordon is just like, okay, next contender, when he's calling in the next person.
Next contestant.
It's so good. It's like almost like he's, when Wong Yu does something good, it's almost like he's cheersing him, like good play as he drinks his wine. It's great. I think off the back of what you've been saying, I think this is a standout for Gordon Liu, definitely. One of my favorite Gordon Liu roles for sure. I was wondering where I'd put Dirty Ho in my Shaw Brothers list, and for me, it's definitely top 5.
Awesome.
Yeah, after watching it yesterday, I'm tempted to say top 3 at this point.
Killer.
I don't, but my list is.
It's always changing, and not for all of us, guys. I mean, we know it's like these things are all relative, and you ask us on a different day of the week or with a different headspace, and that's the joy of it all, right? It's not, and no one's gonna like hold a long Chinese super long finger blade to our neck if we're not making a definitive choice for all time. But
I think
Sean, I liked on. I liked on your podcast episode of Shaolin Mantis how you started it out saying how you didn't even really like that one, and it went from not really liking it to up in your top 5. That shows you the power of a rewatch. power of a rewatch.
Absolutely. I feel I always feel like that. But then, like recency bias, that's exactly it. You watch one and you find like new magic in a film, and it's like, well, okay, this one shot up because I watched, let's say you watched Mad Monkey Kung Fu and you loved it, but you watched it 3 years ago. Then all of a sudden you watch Dirty Ho, and you're like, oh well, that takes the place of Mad Monkey Kung Fu. But if you watch Mad Monkey Kung Fu again, it changes so much. But I will say this: I think I'm one of the few people that, when it comes to top 5, and I'm not saying like in a pretentious way, but honestly, in my top 5 Shaw Brothers, I think something like 5 Super Fighters would be in my top 5.
Oh, cool.
Something like that. But that's because like I'm not that I'm saying no one else is, but like I'm obsessed with shapes. I love, and that's just wall to wall fights. There's barely a breath between the fight scenes. So that's, for me, it's like, well, this is the perfect film for me.
I love the revenge element, which brings me in. That's why I like Executions of Shaolin so much. With Chang Che, when he does it so great. Sometimes I think Chang Che does it in a way that maybe, like Boxer from Shang Tang. I had trouble with that one because Chen Quan Tai, he's such a cool Luke in that, always smoking cigarettes, smiling. Then when at the end, it's not. I have no idea why he turns into the most berserk, most violent ever, and it's cool. But I just wish there was a little bit of a ramp up, like they killed like his family off or something. It's like a coin flip. He didn't drink a potion, and it's like, while I was watching, I was like, this is so awesome and violent. Wait, but why is he this enraged? You know what I mean? I think like that's why the subtlety of it sometimes, where someone's like resistant to fight and then they're like irked on the whole way. It makes the payoff so good that I can't. Especially like Fist of Fury was Bruce Lee, but he's mad from the first frame in that one, But
yeah, it's I think that's the beauty of kung fu films at the end of the day, right? They don't always explain themselves, they don't always make sense, but there's always some kind of joy to find in them. And yeah, I think a lot of Dirty Ho isn't really explained. I mean, the whole Prince thing just seems like a very convenient backdrop for the rest of the kind of the rest of the film to kind of sit on top of it. It does, it's not a huge part of the film. It's just, hey, we have a guy we have a teacher, we have a student, and we're just going to throw people at them, and then at the end they're going to triumph. And we're going to have comedy in it.
It's very simple and effective, and there's a bit of a clock to it as well, because you got you announced the assessor coming up soon. That's building up to it. So there's a bit of a backdrop to that, as you mentioned. Yeah. And it works. It helps the film, keeps the investment going a little bit, definitely, for sure, and it allows everything else to follow through. Like, definitely.
Yeah.
I think just also gives him so many opportunities to kind of basically do stuff that is very different. That the whole gimmick and of the fights being hidden. This is what I was sort of getting into when some fucker rang my buzzer. It clearly wasn't for me because no one's arrived. Right?
I thought it was one of your like million packages coming.
No, dude, no. Like it happens all the time because people know that I mostly work from home, so I'm an easy buzz to because anyway. But I think the whole subterfuge thing just gives him so many opportunities to do stuff that he hadn't done before. So he's not as reliant on traditional forms in a way that you kind of see through other movies. He's basically kind of making up whatever goofy thing will work for that particular moment. And it's like just a chance for him to, I guess, keep things fresh and interesting. I've recently we didn't do it last night, but over the last little while, I've been doing a double bill of Dirty Ho and Tales of a Eunuch. And you guys seen Tales of a Eunuch?
It's been years. It's been years.
Which is, I can never remember who. I'll have to pull up and check the director for it, because it's not Lau Gar-lung, but it is a repeat of Wong Yu and Gordon Liu getting to act together. And I kind of, for ages, the title was the thing that kind of it's 83, so it's quite late. It's Hua Shan is the director, but it's
I think I have searched that. I think I have, yeah.
It's really good, and I think there's a little bit of an inversion of skill set where Wong Yu's the more capable guy in that, and ultimately he basically just sneaks into the royal palace and takes the place of a eunuch there, and then is kind of trying to steal stuff from the royal family while he's there and try not to get found out, and the stakes kind of escalate. But there's some great comedy beats in it, and there's like a young prince and as Gordon Liu in that movie, so the two of them come head to head and they're sort of practicing with each other, and they do have this sort of much more of a friendship type of dynamic than they do any sort of rivalry. Like, I think the rival in that movie is the wonderful Ku Feng. He's the one that's like kind of more out to find out who this imposter is. But the two movies kind of work really beautifully alongside each other, because I kind of feel Wong Yu never got quite his chance to really soar, right? And so by the time that we got into the late 80s, he was literally just showing up for like one scene in Jackie Chan movies. Like you see him briefly in Dragons Forever when there's that big fight on the boat. He's like one of the dudes running in, and I think he'd by that point he'd be more relegated to kind of just being like another one of the stuntmen trying to make a living in Hong Kong, which is a real shame, because he had a lot of charisma, and I think he's great in Spiritual Boxer and in the Shadow Boxing, and I think he never really gets recognized for how solid a Hung Gar performer he was. Like he's I know it's not as dynamic shapes as you kind of get from some of the sort of movies that I know you love, Sean, but he's so tight and solid when he's kind of basically busting out his Hung Gar shapes. That's great. I dig it.
It's great. He's definitely an underrated guy as far, but I guess there was, like you said, there wasn't like a huge number of films to see him in, so I guess he's underrated because we didn't get to see him really flex that much. You know, Dirty Ho is definitely a standout.
And another good one coming next month, 88, putting out Kid from Kwantung, where he goes up against Wang Jiangli, which is a great sequence right at the end of that. And it's that and Kid with a Tattoo are like, they're not Dirty Ho levels of goodness, but they're still both really, really good. And I think that was one of the ones when I saw it that it was coming round, it was like, oh sweet, okay, it's about time for us to get a chance to take a look at Kid from Kwantung again, because it doesn't have as many moments of shining, but when it does get there, it's pretty great. And I think that last reel is really pretty exceptional. Wang Jiangli is always a delight.
Always.
Andrew, I wanted to ask you, I haven't made it through all of your series on Lau Kar Leung yet. What ended up being like your number one, your favorite, going through it all?
Trying to put the obvious ones aside, like there's obviously I like Drunken Master too, but more I think about that, it's less for Long Kai Wai for more for Jackie Chan films. So kind of put that aside. I think I've had different conversations with a few people, but I do think I see some of this stuff in that. I don't know, it's tough. I love 36 Chambers, of course. These are obvious ones, but I'd say some of the top ones that I've unexpectedly liked, and again, like just watching them, without any kind of prior knowledge. Legendary Weapons has been one of my favorites. Like that's really surprised me how much I watched it twice in the same week. Just how much I love that film, and maybe that just works for me, what I like. And Charlotte Mantis, I really dig that, and that was from the writer of Killer Constable, which I fucking love. Killer Constable. Can't stop talking about that film all the time. Can't wait for that in the Short Scope Volume 3 set. So yeah, definitely He Was the East. I say He Was the East, Legendary Weapons, Charlotte Mantis, but also Dirty Ho obviously is definitely in the top contenders. So it's around that kind of ball of movies in the top 5, I would say. Putting aside the obvious ones that are just universally loved, but I'd say one at that time. But yeah, Dirty Ho definitely is one of the top ones for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
Well, we've talked for an hour, 7 minutes. I think we did a pretty good job. Obviously, everyone watching knows we could probably talk about Shaw Brothers and Kung Fu Cinema for another 3 hours, but we have to stop somewhere, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I think this is as good a time as any. All right, let's go ahead and go around, and you can tell the audience where to find you. Let's go with Jason first.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Martial Arts Theater 3000, and my YouTube channel is the same name. And I don't have a Facebook page for this channel, but yeah, so Instagram or YouTube, come on over.
Awesome. Dragon?
I'm pretty much Fanatical Dragon on everything. So Instagram and YouTube. YouTube is easily the best place to kind of check out my stuff. I am on Twitter, which I'm slowly trying to get a little bit more into, which has got a slightly different tag. You'll find the link to my Twitter if you're interested in Twitter on my Instagram. And I'm going to sort of spend the rest of mine saying go and check out Andrew's incredible series of Lau Kar Leung reviews, because they've been an absolute treat. They've been really, really good.
Awesome. And Andrew, where can they find you?
YouTube mainly. Mainly that's a YouTube box. Like I'm quite active on that. I do have Instagram, I do have Twitter, but I don't use them as much. I don't have the time to keep on posting all the time. But I do. I'm quite very active on Box and YouTube. I'd say the two main places for sure.
I think from way more than me, dude, you have a much higher and better sense of like quality over quantity. Like I sometimes have this weird thing at the back of my head where I feel I've got to post videos like all the time, and at one point I was doing a video a day, which was just killing me really quickly. But that's why I think I focus a lot, kind of more than I should, on doing unboxings. And I love the fact that you've been doing your unboxings as shorts recently, which I've been digging. I think it's a great idea.
Oh, nice.
But mostly when you post stuff, right, you maybe don't post as often, but when you do, the reviews are always really well thought out and kind of really well realized. And I love your.
I try to like do like blocks, so like Long Clay Wires have been a block. Like some Japanese stuff, which is I think you'll appreciate. I like things that ties into what you've been doing, which is great. I'm working on Mr. Vampire for October, so I've never seen any. I've seen the first one. I've seen any of the others, so that's a whole new adventure for me getting into.
Andrew, your intros are always awesome. Your intros.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I try and change them up. I try new footage and try and see what's what I'm enjoying, kind of thing. So they're usually reflection.
Like when you have a scene, you fade into the scene from you talking. It's really cool.
Brilliant. I'm glad. I'm glad. They're not like I always worry about like sound quality and like, oh, am I putting footage in there, or am I explaining myself enough properly? But yeah, I try and be honest as much as I can to say this is my opinion, and I hope you guys like it, kind of thing. And sometimes it spirals into a really brilliant debate with a lot of people in the comments, and obviously with you guys as well. And you know, a lot of the time, sometimes when it's not like talk about then, it creeps back up later on. Months later, it could be a talking point like in a new AT release or Eureka release. So it's like then the conversation gets brought back up, and I love that. It's always I always kind of like just this is my mood at the moment. This is what I'm interested in, and it's not always the most relevant to what's coming out or what's talked about, but it creeps back up later on, which I always like that.
Awesome. And you can find me, Food for Thought, everywhere. Just search for Food for Thought. You'll find this is my you're probably watching this on my channel, and you know this is where I am a lot of the time. I have an Instagram. I have a review coming up on YouTube, which will be the recent Error 444 release of Red to Kill. That will be my next review. I've never seen the film, but I've heard it's absolutely bonkers. So I'm looking forward to that. Nice cat-free film. So
awesome.
Sweet. I'm just about to do Kungfusations The Threat, which is coming out later this month from Arrow, and I'm blown away by that movie and how incredibly good it was. I'm just finishing up my review of that just now. It's kind of like a Japanese version of like Desperate Hours in a way, of that kind of home invasion sort of deal, but very different to kind of Kungfusations' other stuff. It feels a lot more like it's inspired by Taiketo and by Kurosawa in a way. It's not got that sort of frantic, crazy documentary style thing that he would lean more into over later years. I was very pleasantly surprised. Amazing film.
Good to hear. That was a good one.
I think you'll really dig it, dude. It's very, very good. Really, really good.
Nice. Well, it sounds like we've all got good things coming up. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me.
Guys.
I really appreciate it. To be honest, I would like more of these in the future. There's nothing better than sitting down with a bunch of Kung Fu cinema fans or Asian cinema fans and just talking it out. And to be honest, I've had some good feedback, especially about the Bruceploitation one that some of us were on. I've had some great feedback about, you know, just some people listening to us just talk it up as fans. And I think that's awesome. We need more of this online. So thank you very much, guys. Thank you for watching, everyone. Comments down below, all that good stuff. If you like it, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. Lovely. And I will catch you next time. All right. Great. Wonderful. Let me just end the recording.